So, hi everyone. To those of you I have not met, my name is Caryn. I joined NYCHG a little while ago. I work for Resi, the restaurant reservations company, and I have a little bit to tell you about what I do there and about myself. So, quick agenda. We're going to go over who I am, what's Resi, how are we different from competitors, what makes an ideal Resi restaurant if you have clients and you're wondering if they should start with Resi or another reservation company, a couple testimonials, and then leaving some time for Q&A. Oop, nope, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Here we go. Okay. So, who am I? I joined this group in June 2021, very recently. Happy to be here. I took the place of Chandra Geis, who you may have known before, who was from Resi and part of the team here. And I also worked with Peter Esmond in the past, who I know is also a member and a great guy. A little bit more about me. I studied food and technology at NYU's Food Studies program. So if you have questions about that program or any friends that are ever interested in it, I could help with that. I have a lot to talk about there. I currently live in Williamsburg, but I am originally from South Florida, and actually in a breakout room with Adam Gross discovered I grew up down the street from his wife. So small world there. I have a dog whose name is Bobka. She is a little black Boston Terrier mix. Happy to share photos if anyone needs those later. My favorite food is a cheeseburger. I have the taste of an 8-year-old boy, which is fine. And I moonlit as a freelance food writer for many years before joining the industry full time. So that leads me to what do I actually do at Resi? So I work on our B2B marketing team. So Resi, as you may know, has two different sets of customers. We have the consumers, diners, people that book their reservations on Resi, and then we also have the restaurants that use our services. So I mainly work with the restaurant side. I do content and editorial. So what that means is I create all the emails that get sent out to our restaurant partners around the world. We have about 5,000 right now around the world in a couple different countries. Most are concentrated in the US, and our biggest market is New York City. So some of the other stuff that I do is I keep our blog. We have a Resi OS for operating system blog that we work on to provide resources and content for our restaurant partners. So just a little snapshot there. My most recent article, which is very relevant and exactly what Adam was talking about, is navigating vaccine policies. So we spoke to a couple different Resi restaurants to see how they are handling vaccine policies thus far. Okay, so what is Resi? The tagline here, Resi powers the world's best restaurants using technology to imagine the future of hospitality. A lot of you are probably familiar with Resi already. You know that it's an online reservation system where people can book reservations, but it has a couple other functionalities that you may not know about. Of course, table management and waitlist management. We also have a tool where you can create and sell tickets to an event and market that event. It's a communication tool, so you can have text messages back and forth with your guests. It collects feedback, so it sends out that survey after every meal that you have, you know, how likely are you to recommend this place to a friend, and it gets information about your experience so they can provide that back to the restaurant. And lastly, this is just a couple of the things it does, but the major highlights, we do have a POS integration with a couple different systems, mainly Toast right now, which can integrate that data from your POS and from your reservations and put together actionable insights that you can use to make choices about what dishes to push and providing, you know, extra hospitality for your guests. You can take a note that someone prefers a bottle of wine in their profile, and then when they show up, you can have that bottle of wine ready for them. Really part of that surprise and delight narrative. Okay, so we get this question a lot. How are we different from our competitors? Something I forgot to mention is that Resi was acquired by American Express about 2 years ago, and then really the integration has kicked up in the past year, which is the reason why I couldn't show my screen before, because American Express is a bank and they have lots of restrictions and compliance rules, and my computer does not play nicely with Zoom. It prefers WebEx, but that's fine because I have another computer. So the main differences between Resi and some of our other competitors, I won't read through all the notes here, but legacy of innovation. Something that is a really unique feature about Resi that I personally have used and like a lot is Notify, where it's an automatic future wait list for restaurants. So if you have a time and a restaurant that you want to go to, but you see that they're fully booked, you can set a Notify so that way, if that time becomes available, you'll get an automatic email notification telling you that the spot has opened up, and then you can go and book it. That has worked out for me where I've gotten very cool reservations many times in the past. The value that Amex is really bringing to Resi is having that humongous diner network. Amex is a trusted name. They are able to drive a lot of guests to Resi restaurants. No cover fees. So this is the main difference between us and an open table, and the biggest question that I get. So we do not charge cover fees. Resi is a flat monthly fee, based on your needs. We have 3 different packages, but you won't have any sort of surprise bills. This makes a huge difference in restaurants that are doing a lot of volume. You can, shrink your reservation management bill, make it a fraction of what it is if your restaurant's doing a lot of volume. Resi's marketing is pretty robust in terms of the consumer side. We have a lot of events. We have a whole editorial team that's headed up by some really awesome writers that I admire, and I love to see their stuff. For the past year, with the exception of the previous 2 months, for 15 months, we did have 100% fee relief for all of our restaurants during the pandemic, meaning no restaurant paid for Resi for the 15 months from March 2020 through June 2021. So important to us to be a partner for restaurants. And lastly, 24/7 support. Our support team is super friendly, and we're really happy to have them. So what makes an ideal Resi restaurant? If you have a restaurant client and you're wondering if they would be good for Resi or if they would be good for another reservation platform, I included a couple different examples here of restaurants that do work with Resi in the city. You can see we have, the Union Square hospitality groups, the major food groups of the world, those restaurant groups that are really organized and have a lot of locations in New York City, have a pretty robust marketing network of their own. But we also have, the smaller restaurants. Damica has been a huge hit this year. Yellow Rose, I recommend if you haven't been there yet, in the East Village for breakfast tacos and all kinds of tacos. And they're just a 1-unit operation. Pickle Hospitality, again, a couple different units within the city. And then we also have some national restaurant groups like Hillstone. And then I wanted to point out Peter Luger as well, because they were historically, pen and paper, really set in their ways, a legacy and institution, and we were able to work with them to create a system that works. But overall, I would say if a restaurant, is able to drive some of their own demand, not relying on a platform like an open table to get diners in the door. Times have changed a lot since Open Table launched. People are now getting their restaurant recommendations from many, many, many different places. They're more engaged, they're reading Eater, they're reading Grub Street. So it's a different world now. If a restaurant is driving its own traffic, through those other different channels or through social or however they have followers, then Resi is a great fit for them. And what do customers say about Resi? We can send out this deck after. I don't have to read through these directly, but just a few quotes here from King and Don Angie in New York, and then Cassava in San Francisco. Partners definitely talk about how automated text to confirm reservations, save them a lot of time for their host to be calling guests and doing that manually. Integrating with the POS system is super helpful for both, hospitality and having those insights that you can make changes to your operations on. And then something to note about the feedback that people receive from Resi when people fill out those surveys is that they are internal. So it's not like Yelp where the feedback is posted externally. They're internal so that the restaurant can take action. And that's it. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caryn,
Sure.
for sharing. It's interesting to hear about how companies were working with their clients during the pandemic, and you had mentioned that fees were waived and what have you. And Caryn, as you mentioned, Chan was a member, and we got to know Resi a bit last year, and it's been interesting to see how the integration and how it's evolved, how Resi's evolved. Does anyone have any questions for Caryn?
Harmony.
Hey, Caryn, that was awesome. I love your babka dog. Very cute. My question is, when you're in touch with your clients, your restaurant clients, like what's that conversation about? What are you guys connecting about, like on the daily? What's that like?
Yeah, I think an important part of my story that I missed is that I was previously on our account management team. So I had a book of 250 accounts that I was interacting with daily, not all 250 daily or I'd explode, but helping them troubleshoot issues, get onboarded, sort of a consultative role on how to use the system. And actually right when the pandemic started, I moved over to this B2B marketing team. So what I really look for personally when I'm talking to restaurants is stories that I can share with our Resi restaurant community. So for example, we have such amazing restaurants that have all of their own experiences, and something that I really want to do is capture more of that. And, this concept of a Resi roundtable, like these issues that are plaguing the whole industry, the vaccine mandates and how to handle that, staffing, what can we gather from these restaurants to help out their peers? We want them to know that there is a community, you're not alone. And there's knowledge to be shared, basically.
Awesome.
Oh,
hey.
Yeah.
Right. That was a fantastic presentation. Love the visuals. So awesome. So if you have any other questions for Caryn, please shoot her a note, use the chat, and thank you, Caryn.
I do want to address this question quickly from Joel. What is my favorite cheeseburger? This is a very polarizing question. I really love a Shake Shack burger. Like, I'm just a simple gal, and I just, you can't mess with perfection.
Awesome. Let's make sure we get that on the profile, on the MICHA member profile. Awesome. Thank you again so much, Caryn. Awesome. And we're very grateful that you're part of the team.